Motor vehicle trends, Evelyn.
Right, and so as those total number of vehicle sales continue to come in today, we're also going to see Tesla reporting their production numbers. So we talked energy earlier, but right now all eyes are on these cars, right? Both the domestic and the imports that we're seeing, and we are already seeing some numbers come in. For instance, Fiat Chrysler just reported their strongest June sales.
Yeah.
However, that's coming off of a 2% decline in U.S. sales for the first half of the year. So I'm definitely interested in seeing how all of these companies report, if there's a general trend, and to see the winners among the losers in this space. And so, Andy, with all of this, I'm wondering what in general you're seeing for these consumer auto trends.
Yeah, well, one of the cool things we can do at LikeFolio is kind of a new function that we have is look at consumer trends from a macro perspective. So not just looking at a single company at a time. And when we look at consumers talking about just buying new automobiles, we see a pretty nice, just general uptrend up and to the right, nice and steady that you'd expect with the economy growing the way that ours is. But when you really drill down into what's driving that, we actually found that it was SUV sales that are the primary driver going on in the consumer's mind. And so demand for SUVs is extraordinarily hot, and companies that are prepared for that are doing very, very well. Ford here in Louisville, I can remember just maybe 8-10 years ago, they were thinking about just basically shutting down all of the SUV stuff because gas prices were high and it was out of trend. But now they're actually retooling to ramp up production by another 20% this year. Demand for SUVs is up 35, sometimes 70% year over year. And so that's really what's driving consumer demand. You can see Tesla and others are prepared for that. Some other companies simply are not. And that's what I think's going to be a big driver between winners and losers in the automobile space going forward is, do you have the right products for where the consumer is headed?
Andy, this is always an interesting day because motor vehicle sales, they don't come out like your normal data point. They kind of leak out throughout the day and you round out to get this number. And it was a month ago where motor vehicle sales, they were looking for 16.9 million, actually came in 17.3 million, a huge beat on the motor vehicle sales number. Now we're looking for 17 today, but the great thing about that is you can connect the dots from motor vehicle sales to GDP. And you want to grade this economy, grade it on durable goods and motor vehicle sales and things like that. They all start to paint a picture of a healthy economy. So you're right, though. It's all about trucks. It's all about SUVs. I have friends in the car business, and think about a world where Ford isn't even making the Taurus anymore, right? They're making the F-150. They're making the Explorer, and the only car that they have now is the Mustang. Basically, is what they're going to have left.
Yeah, that's it. I think you hit the nail on the head. Ford is one of those companies. I mean, it is built to make big trucks on big frames, and these SUVs certainly fit into that category as well. And so they're really well prepared to do that. And Kevin, I think you're right. I think that automobile sales in general are just an unbelievably good proxy for the economy, because unlike housing, you don't have to have a car, you don't have to have a new car, but when you're feeling good about the economy and your employment prospects, it's more likely that you're going to turn one over and get a new one quicker than usual. And so I think that these strong numbers indicate to me that, number one, the economy is looking pretty good. Number two, from a consumer standpoint, the concern about energy prices or gas prices is fairly low. You can see that with the move to trucks and SUVs. And number three, all of these companies that really focused all of their efforts on building economical small cars are paying the price now, while the Fords, the Toyotas, and the Teslas even have done a good job of identifying where the consumer is going, or maybe they just got lucky. But either way, they're in a good spot moving forward.
So tying in that general economic discussion with these auto sales that are coming out, Andy, my first tweet is from a regular contributor to our show, Danielle DiMartino, and she says economic growth to decelerate in 2019 and then ease further in 2020 as auto sales downshift. Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. 70% of auto suppliers were more pessimistic about the 12-month business outlook in the first quarter versus 50% of respondents in the fourth quarter of 2018. A ray of reality. Would you say that's a ray of reality? Do we have maybe some less than positive data to expect?
I'll start with this one because it's amazing how expectations for a slowdown are so widespread, right? Everyone's making this. I've never seen a media manufactured slowdown more in my life than you're seeing right now. And the only thing that doesn't really, we're tapering off unimaginable high levels that we're at, but that doesn't mean we're weak. We're just tapering off. And I think it's fascinating to watch. Last month was a complete shock that this motor vehicle sales number came in so high. So I just think, people should watch the data, not the headlines and the expectations.
Good point.
I think that is a really interesting point. Andy, just to kind of further clarify on some of your guys' data real quick here, did you have any insight into just like the car purchases as well? Are you seeing that kind of tail off, or is that kind of staying steady with just new vehicle in general?
Yeah, no, the car purchases aren't great. I think that's part of the numbers that Evelyn brings up is the fact that some of these suppliers aren't really prepared and aren't, focused on the right part of the industry. And so suppliers can get a little out of whack and they can get a little pessimistic if they're only looking at the one part of the industry that they supply to. And if that's, a smaller car market, then they're going to be pretty pessimistic. But if you're in the big truck SUV side of the equation, you're going to be pretty optimistic, and for very good reason, because that's where the consumer demand is. And so I think when you look at, kind of these emotional kind of forecasts by suppliers and what they think is going to happen in 2020, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because what really drives the whole thing is consumer demand, and right now that's strong, especially in the SUV and truck segment.
So I have another tweet for you too. Our next tweet says, while global ICE, which is internal combustion energy, auto industry is declining in the US, Europe, and China entering a recession, Tesla is growing exponentially in all of these markets, setting up new factories, introducing new models. The future is obvious. Ignore the white noise. And Andy, you mentioned Tesla earlier as far as adjusting to those consumer trends and providing what the consumer will want to buy. And Tesla does have these SUVs. However, they are electric SUVs. And I'm wondering, do you have data on those consumer trends as well?
Yeah, what we see with Tesla is the demand is very high for their Model X. It's a phenomenal car. It's an SUV, but it feels like you're driving a Corvette or something. I mean, it's unbelievable. I would put, there's another side to what Alp is saying here, and that is, Tesla's coming off of a very, very low baseline. I think that General Motors crash tests more cars than Tesla sells in a year. So you're coming off a very, very low baseline. It's easy to get pretty impressive numbers compared to an old industry. But I think, there's something to it. There's something to the electric car movement. But overall, I think it's more about what consumers want to be driving. And those are bigger cars that can handle, family activities and a lot of stuff. And that's what's going on the consumer side. So I think, you can debate internal combustion versus electric all day long. I think at the end of the day, it's what do consumers want in the style of the car that they are going to drive around all day. That is trending larger, and there are certain companies that are much better prepared to deal with that than others.